So what if I told you that your breath is way more than just a tool to relax? That it's actually a super powerful biological hack you can use to, well, purify your mind and literally rewrite the old scripts that are running in your brain. This goes way beyond just calming down. We're talking about taking back conscious control. Now, this quote, it actually comes from a student who basically ran a real-world experiment on themselves. And it just perfectly captures the whole idea, right? Your mental state, and because of that, your performance, can be totally transformed by something you're doing every single second without even thinking about it. I want you to picture this because we've all been there. You have a huge math test. You've studied, you know your stuff, but the stress just completely takes over. You rush, you blank out, and your grade shows it. But then, later that exact same day, you have a physics test. This time you do one thing differently. You just stop and you take a few deep, intentional breaths. And what happens? You crush it. The only thing that changed was your breath. So this brings up a huge question. What if you could dissolve stress before it gets a foothold, instead of just trying to deal with it after the fact? What if you could stop that mental fog and anxiety from ever even clouding up your thinking? Well, the science is in, and it tells us you absolutely can. Okay, so to really get how this works, we need to pop the hood and take a look at our body's operating system. See, your breath is one of the only automatic things, like your heartbeat, that you can also consciously control. And that little loophole, that makes it a secret hack into your entire nervous system. Your nervous system basically has two main modes. You've got the sympathetic system. Think of this as your body's gas pedal. It's your fight or flight response. When you're stressed and taking short, shallow breaths, it floods your body with the stress hormone cortisol. But then you've got the parasympathetic system, and this is the key. This is your brake pedal. When you take deep, slow breaths, you are consciously hitting the brakes. You're telling your brain, hey, we're safe. And this rest and digest state actually lowers your heart rate and starts clearing all that cortisol out. And look, this isn't just a feeling. We're talking about real, measurable results here. One study found that students who did some deep breathing right before a really intense test performed on average 30% better than the students who didn't. I mean, 30%. That's huge. It just shows you how much mental horsepower we leave on the table when we let stress run the show. Okay, so we're moving from a biological switch to a really powerful psychological tool. I want you to start thinking of your breath as a kind of chemical solvent, something that can literally dissolve negative thought patterns before they have a chance to harden into real anxiety. In this analogy, mindfulness is the active ingredient, and your breath is the delivery system. That simple, rhythmic flow of air is the solvent, and it goes to work on the solute, all that tension and stress that's been building up in your mind and your body. Now, here's where it gets really, really cool. A negative thought isn't just some abstract thing floating around in your head. It actually needs a physical anchor to survive, a little marker of tension somewhere in your body. You know what I mean? That tight jaw, those clenched shoulders, that heavy feeling in your chest. When you direct your breath to that exact spot, you dissolve the physical marker. And when you do that, the thought literally has nothing left to hold on to, and it just fades away. All right, the theory is great, but how do we actually put this into practice? Let's get to it. We're going to learn a dead simple, incredibly powerful technique used by some of the most elite performers on the entire planet when the stakes could not be higher. And let's be clear, this is not a wellness fad. This technique is called box breathing, and it is the real deal. It's used by Navy SEALs in combat situations, by elite surgeons to steady their hands before a life-altering operation, by Olympians like Michael Phelps to perform under insane pressure. So, if it works for them, it can definitely work for us. The technique itself is unbelievably simple. Just picture a box in your mind, 4 equal sides. That's all you have to remember. You inhale through your nose for a count of 4, you hold your breath for a count of 4, you exhale out of your mouth for a count of 4, and then you hold at the bottom for a count of 4. That's it. That simple, 4-sided rhythm is what resets your entire nervous system and gives your mind one single focused job. Using this technique as a rescue tool is amazing, for sure. But the real magic, the real game changer, is when you practice it consistently. That's when you get a long-term upgrade for your brain. You're moving way beyond just managing stress in the moment to fundamentally changing your brain's default settings. You've probably heard this famous phrase from neuroscience: neurons that fire together, wired together. Well, this is literally what's happening. Every single time you consciously choose to focus on your breath instead of getting sucked into a stressful thought, you are strengthening a new pathway in your brain. Over time, that little dirt path becomes a super highway. You are physically rewiring your brain to make peace and focus your new normal. I like to think of that chaotic monkey mind as an unruly committee meeting in your head, where everyone's shouting for attention, while box breathing is like the chairperson banging the gavel and giving that entire committee one simple unified task. It doesn't silence all the voices, but it gets them all focused on the same thing, and that gives you much, much greater control over your emotional state. What this all means is you can finally break free from what some psychologists call stagnant water stories. You know what I'm talking about, those repetitive negative thought loops we all get stuck in. Instead of just being a passive listener to that broken record, you become an active craftsperson, intentionally shaping your own mental and emotional state. Because when it comes down to it, you are the owner of your own mental fabrications, the stories you tell yourself, the states you live in. Your breath is your tool, it's your anchor, and it's your power. So the only question left is, what are you going to choose to create with it?